you are in charge of your own destiny. You create one, right? You create your own economy.
I've got to do this crappy job. It doesn't matter if I've got to sleep in the car, remortgage the house, because I know that in 6 months, 6 years, I'm going to be hitting it big. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Airbnb Nomads podcast. And on this week's Property Education Masterclass, we're joined by the incredibly inspiring Julia Scoville. Now, Julia is going to tell her story right back from the beginning, where she fled communist Russia to come over to the UK in search of a better life. With just a basic education behind her, managed to carve a high-flying corporate career out of some of the UK's biggest banks. And then once she'd cracked that, she decided that there wasn't enough freedom alongside her ever-growing family. So she decided to start trailblazing her way through the property industry, building a large portfolio of HMOs, raising investor finance, and then building even her own letting agency off the back of that. And after that part of the story, it just keeps snowballing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Guys, Julia's story tells you exactly what's possible. With grit, determination, and a desire to become your best self, anything is possible. Stick around and listen to the entire episode. You're going to get so much value from this. On that note, guys, if you get inspired, if this episode gives you what you need to drive forward and become your best self and to really realize that anything is possible, I would really ask you to please follow the show. And if you can, leave us a review. It helps us more than I can possibly say. Until that time, settle in, get comfortable, grab yourself a cuppa. This is a fantastic episode and get ready to be inspired. Here we go. Hey, Julia, and welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Hello, Alex, and thank you so much for inviting, and thank you for listening.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Good to have you with us. Couple of reasons why I wanted to have you on, Julia. You reached out to me asking to come on, and I happily accepted that invitation because a couple of things in your story that stood out. I like the fact that this is a bit of a rags to riches, from nothing to success story. I'm a big advocate for that. I love to hear how people have done it, how they've kind of change their lives and, become their best self. People love listening to that stuff at home as well, because it's inspiring and they like to hear these kinds of stories. Also, you're a woman in business, which I love as well. We've had a lot of women on the podcast. I think it's great that women are getting out there and really, trailblazing the way and showing the rest of us how it's done. So some really, really cool stuff there. And we actually had a really nice review that was on the podcast the other day, and it said, I love this podcast because a lot of other property podcasts just talk about all of the successes that the person being interviewed has had, whereas this podcast explains in detail the whole journey. So I think that's, off the back of that, a really natural place to begin. So Julia, tell us a little bit about where your story began back at the start.
Well, yes, sure, Alex. My story began probably by my birthplace. Originally, I'm from Belarus, so I lived there until age 20. And if you are familiar with history and geography, Belarus was part of Soviet Union for a very long time. And only recently 20 plus years, it has, came out from that story. So anyway, my childhood was spent during communist time. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because communist regime forbids to make money. To make money, it's something that against the law, and you go to prison basically.
Wow.
So I guess the mindset that I had to work with, and that was number one for me, coming over to UK, is understanding making money, how business is operating, and working with my mindset, accepting that there are lots of rich people and that how it works and why economy the way it is, and all those kind of ownership and property investment, all those kind of concepts were absolutely new to me. So I had to almost like relearn them, and obviously seeing them in practice, right? Seeing other people having nice cars, nice holidays, clothes, or whatever, understanding how it all works, because obviously my background, everyone was equal during communist time. There wasn't,
Can
much
we
of
can we
differentiation.
dig into that just a little bit, Julia? Because that's such a foreign concept to me and to no doubt pretty much everybody that's listening to this episode. Obviously, living in the UK in a capitalist, democracy, the opportunity to go out there and basically create whatever it is that you want to create. We can argue about how supportive the government is of that and business and entrepreneurialism and stuff like that. But, in a nutshell, we can all go out there and we can carve our way. So how does that work in Belarus? If you're going out there and you're achieving anything, what happens? You get in trouble for that by trying to achieve and grow and become a better person?
Well, yeah, the communist concept, right? An idea that everyone is
Everybody's the
equal,
same. Yeah.
everyone is the same, and the government, the state provides for everyone. So there is enough for everyone to live on. So why would you want to have more, right? We're all the
Right.
same. And it was coming to the point where it was, there are actually lots of movies made with comedy effect on it because, for example, kids' uniform was exactly the same across all 22 countries of Soviet Union. Some of the clothes that you wore were exactly the same what it was in Belarus compared to Uzbekistan or Ukraine or Russia. Even the type of buildings, and like there is a Soviet Union era in terms of the style of the building. So there will be an architect who outline plans and design of the units. And why to be creative, right? When if this is works, we just replicate across the whole country. Um, so there was lots of replica of the same stuff. So the unity was there throughout everything. Um, and people got jobs, people got government jobs. Every single job was government job. And it was really interesting. My property investment, I guess my first ever property investment journey probably started back home without me realizing this. So I'm going to share a really quick story with you. So the Soviet Union broken down. The concept of ownership didn't exist until that moment at all in people consciousness because everything was owned by the government, right? And for example, my parents have been given a flat by the government because that's how it operated back in the days. You take a queue in a place, amongst all other people, and then based on your circumstances, like if you've got family, children, all that stuff, you will get priority. So anyway, my parents got a flat from the government. After Soviet Union broke down, they had an opportunity to have ownership of that flat and buy it ultimately or transfer the deeds or whatever you want to call it. But because the concept of ownership so new, I remember my parents came up to me. I think I was like about 18, 19, and I was studying law at the time back home. And they said, Julia, what do you think? Do you think we should make this ownership? Like we're living here anyway. We can't see government kicking us out. This is our flat. And I remember my economy teacher said that property is the best investment you can have. I didn't even understand what he meant at the time, but I remember that phrase really stuck in my head. And I said,
Mm.
property is the best investment you can have, so I think we should do it. So my parents literally just paid £30 equivalent to those days' money administration fee to have ownership of that flat. Now, if you want to have ownership of that flat, you just pay market rate, which obviously will be 100,000 plus. And those people who didn't board or use that opportunity back in the days now regretting big time.
I'm
So
sure.
it was very interesting in the concept of ownership, something that people weren't familiar.
One thing that I'm not quite understanding about how communism works, and this shows my kind of, my failings in school. Obviously, I didn't exactly excel. I spent too much time anywhere but school, but that's a different subject. What is it in a communist society that motivates anybody to take the harder road? For example, why would I choose to be a lawyer when I know that I'm going to get paid the same or get the same benefits as if I'm a road sweeper? What? How does that work? Or maybe you
Great
don't have a
question.
choice. Maybe you're told what you're going to do. I don't know.
That's once the society is formed, you don't have a choice, obviously, to wanting more or do something different. But don't forget the ideology of the whole concept is the party is in charge, the Communist Party is in charge, and party knows best because party pursues interest of everyone in the society. So party becomes almost like a godlike type
Hmm. Like a
community, or
dictatorship, basically, right?
yeah, yeah, it is dictatorship, yes. So,
Hmm.
and answering your question, why would you? It's for the serving bigger purpose, serving bigger ideology, bigger idea and concept.
So it's basically to provide value to your fellow community members within your country. That's
Yeah.
what
So
motivates
everyone
people.
everyone chips in, which
Hmm.
means then everyone shares.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, yeah, I don't really think it's the kind of society that I'd want to live in personally, but I can see why maybe you wanted to make the move, and come over to a more kind of opportunistic kind of society. So how did that work? What kind of age were you when you decided to make the move to come over to the UK?
I was 20 years old, still very young, right? And
Yeah.
I moved because I wanted independence away from parents, everything that 20 years old probably wanted.
Yeah.
And for some reason, like even when I was much younger, I always had this idea in my head that I want to live abroad. I don't know why, it's just like internal urge. So I was seeking opportunities to do that. And then, as I mentioned, I was law student back home, and opportunity came for student exchange program, which I have taken up on. And funny enough, I was learning French back home at school. I didn't learn English as such. English was first year at uni. So when I came to UK, my English was very not basic, shall we say. And another funny story with that, I remember we just arrived to Victoria Station in London,
Hmm.
and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning or something ridiculous like that. And we all were desperate for a toilet. And I said, "Oh, look, there is a sign, toilet. I think toilet just over there. Let's run." So we run over there. I'm thinking, where is the toilet here? I can't see, and I can see another sign just round the corner, and it says toilet. I was like, "Oh, look, toilet over there." And we're running from those signs, and I'm looking. I'm thinking, why there are so many toilet signs? And I looked again, and it says to let,
No way.
not
I hope
toilet. Yeah,
so.
so
You were knocking on people's front doors and asking to use the bathroom.
yeah, that's another another, I guess, property term that I've experienced in a very
Right.
different way.
It's come back around full circle. And I
Mm.
think, I would just reflect back to you, Julie, in case you don't know, but as I'm doing these episodes and as I'm meeting, different people from different backgrounds, and they've all achieved, they've all grown, they've all developed, they've all built. And, all of these similar traits keep coming up, and it's the ability to understand, or desire more, to desire growth, to desire challenge and opportunity, and not just to desire it, but to actually go out and make it happen. Because you could have very easily stayed where you was, fallen into the communist system, right, and lived a very, kind of average life, I would have imagined. Um, but instead, you made the decision to go out and find a place that was more suited to what you was envisioning your future to look like, and you took the steps to make it happen. You implemented that, and you started the process, and now here we are. So, just to reflect back to you, and for people listening at home, I think it's important for me. My job is to highlight these traits and these things that I see over and over and over again in the guests that I have on the podcast, is what makes people different from, a lot of other people who just kind of stay stuck in whatever the life was that they were handed, but instead choose to just sit there, complain, mope, look at other people and say, lucky them. Well, this podcast is about showing that you need to make shit happen, right? And you need to make the change. So, well done for that. So you rock up into the UK, law student, opportunity comes up for what, a law job, is it, in London somewhere, no doubt?
I wish. So because my English wasn't really good, so
Mm.
like that wasn't an option. And I also couldn't envisage myself to go to court and have an accent or have broken English as a lawyer, right? So I thought, okay, that's probably me knocking off the career in law. And plus, law is in UK very different compared to law back home. So I thought, okay, well, what shall I do now, right? What career do I want to turn to? And you talk about the development, right? So I'm the type of person who loves development, loves to develop my weaknesses. So I thought, I know math is my not the strongest point, never been at school. I know I'm going to get a job with a bank and I'm going to develop my math skills. So I did. I got a job with a bank in a very entry level in mortgage department. And funny enough, I was so impressed by the induction I had. It was Royal Bank of Scotland. I got my first job. And I thought, you know what? I would love to be a trainer. I want to be that person who trains people in the bank. But again, self-dialogue kicks in. Oh, Julia, don't be ridiculous. You're a foreigner, you've got an accent. Who is going to listen to you in a bank, right? What kind of British person will be listening to you from Belarus, teaching them about banking and all those kind of things? So I kind of almost like parked that idea, but I was really lucky enough to have a great manager who asked me, Julia, what do you want to do in terms of your career development within the bank? And I said, I would love to do trainer job, but obviously I'm not cut out for this. And he's the one who said, well, hold on a second, you can do it, and he gave me a
Wow.
couple of pointers. So he gave me hope, I guess, and gave me like that little straw, right, which I grabbed. And I went and developed myself. I found training course. I start socializing with trainers, learn more about their industry, what do I need to do. And, like you talk about development again, I use this example a lot. And you probably heard this term, if you can't find opportunities, you create your own opportunities
Create
and
it.
you create your own economy, right? So I've set my eyes to become a trainer, and obviously one of the important skills to be a trainer is communication skills. So I was in department with a bank at the time, which was writing off debt. It was collections and recoveries department, where bank doesn't want to talk to customers anymore. And I was basically writing off debt, and it was computer-based jobs, no phone calls, no communication, nothing. You just sit there purely typing away. And I'm thinking, how the heck I'm going to develop my communication skills here, right? I don't even talk on the phone. I don't talk to anyone. And I remember because I wanted to enhance my English, especially business English, I was reading lots of intranet on banking website. And I've learned that there are lots of benefits that bank offers, like free eye care, like childcare vouchers, all that kind of stuff. And I started talking to my colleagues about it, and my manager heard me. And it's happened to be annual employee survey happening in a bank. And she's seen an opportunity. She said, would you mind doing a small presentation on morning huddle, talking about banking benefits? I was like, yeah, of course. So I pulled a little presentation and I was talking about it 5, 10 minutes. And it happened to be on that day when I was doing my presentation, our area director chipped in into our huddle and he listened to me. He says, I like that. Can you go and do to the rest of my other 5 teams in the area, please? I was like, yeah, of course. And all of a sudden, I've delivered a presentation to 60 plus people, right? Communication skills. So it's kind of taught me, I guess, that you are in charge of your own destiny. And if it seems like there is no opportunity around, you create one, right? You create your own economy. My mom always used to say, in any impossible situation, there are always 3 exits. So that's my life motto now. I always challenge myself whenever you face something that you think, oh my God, I just like that's it, shut door, you're
Mm.
facing the wall. What are 3 exits? Julia, just think.
Well, it's one of the things that we consistently drill into our own mentees that we work with, which is, you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? There's no progress in safe places. Which is why, a lot of people spend the whole of their life working one job, because it's easy and they get to do it with their eyes blindfolded, but there's no progress there. And when you get to the end of it all, you're going to look back with regret, because you're going to know that if you had taken that chance, taken that risk, had that very uncomfortable interview, or given that very scary presentation, it opens up different doors and different opportunities. And what else is interesting is you spoke about your colleague at the bank, who said to you, no, Julia, you can do this. And I think we all have, if we reflect and look back, it might not be obvious at the time and it might not be obvious today, but if we look back, there's always very specific characters in our past, in our history, that change the complete course of direction that our life takes. you know it might be somebody who is very supportive, like that particular person was, and said, you can do this, Julia, and that drove you into that direction. Or it could be someone who's the complete opposite, is a complete asshole, and stops you from being able to take a specific opportunity, and that drives you in a completely different direction. But the fact is that when you're out there, when you're putting yourself in these situations, when you're, from a properties perspective, when you're going to the networking meetings, or when you're giving that really scary presentation, right? Doors open, opportunities come along, conversations get had that would not happen when you're just playing it safe every single day.
Absolutely. Can't agree more.
If you love to travel like me and you understand the power in escaping the money for time exchange trap, but you just don't know how to do it, then building an Airbnb consultancy business could be exactly what you have been looking for. Right now in the UK, there is a completely untapped opportunity through helping struggling Airbnb hosts by turning around their underperforming properties and generating you huge commission payments in the process. We are going to teach you all of the tools and all of the techniques that we've learned over the last 5 years through building our very own multiple six-figure Airbnb business, arming you with everything that you need to swoop in and save the day. Minimal startup costs, zero risk, and almost unlimited potential. Sound good? Welcome to the Airbnb Consultant. Contact us through any of the channels included in the studio notes to get the conversation started. So what were these three exits now? I'm intrigued now. Is it just a general rule, or are they specific things like jump off the roof and get on a plane and disappear, or what's the exits here?
That's the most common question people ask me. What are those three exits? Well, you have to think them and work them out. And I'll give you
Yeah.
another quick story. Another day, my son locked himself in his bedroom and he was panicking and crying. And I was like, hold on a second. Remember what grandma used to say? Oh, yeah, three exits. So what are they? He's like, came down and he's like, number one, maybe jumping out of the window. Okay, yeah, possibly. Not maybe the safest option.
Mm.
Number two, breaking the door. Yes. Number three, maybe call the dad or call the handyman. I was like, have you go. Here's your three, at least, right? You worked it out.
There's
So you
always
just have to challenge yourself.
Yeah, thinking about it, I guess there is always three options. A couple of them might be a bit painful, but there's always a way out, I guess. So obviously here, as the story's unfolding, and like I said at the very beginning, this is another typical story of, you know, grit, determination, getting uncomfortable, putting yourself in awkward situations, pushing yourself, learning, not wasting any time, sitting around, doing mundane things. All of your time and all of your effort was focused in, how do I get ahead? How do I learn English? How am I going to kill things at the bank? How am I going to get promoted? Blah, 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 blah. Right. Same stuff. Success leaves clues. So what's the next step? How long did you end up spending at this bank once you started to excel and get promoted into the training circles?
So yes, then I got my secondment, became a trainer, was really successful. Then life took me to various places, living in UK. I lived in Grimsby. I lived in,
Oh, lovely.
I worked in, yeah, don't ask me why. I lived in Birmingham, I worked in Nottingham, I worked
I
in
thought you was going to
Hull.
say I went to Monaco, and then I was going to went to the Cayman Islands, but no, you ended up in
Oh,
Grimsby.
would be lovely, wouldn't be? But no, yeah, the glamorous role of trainer, you are on the road a lot, and especially with the bank, because bank has so many branches in various
Yeah.
locations. Um, but yeah, so as a result, I've changed my companies, I worked for. So, but again, another thing I've said to myself, I was thinking, well, on my CV now, I've got a line saying that I worked for Royal Bank of Scotland, and I'm really proud of it and I love it. And I'm almost set myself a bar, and I thought, you know what, I don't want to see anything lower than that on my CV. So I set myself a target that on my CV I just want to see big names.
Hmm.
So then I went to work for Barclays. I
Okay.
also worked for Arcada, and I also worked for Marks and Spencers. And I even had a job interview with Bank of England, and I came second. Um, but cutting my long story short, in terms of learning and development, I love what I was doing. I had company car. I was, seen as an expert in my field. Working from home, loved it. And obviously, corporate career goes lovely until you start having children. And somehow, corporate career and children don't always gel well together. So I started having children, and it's really made me think in terms of my time. I'm spending so much time at work, and I don't see, at the time I had my first son, and I don't see him anymore. Like someone spending more time with him, installing life important values into his head. So when he's turning 16 and he's not the way that I want him to be, it's only me to blame for. And I thought, you know what, I can't afford that. I need to do something different. So I always wanted to invest into property, but always thought you need to have so much money, right? Again, coming from communist background, learning the concept, thinking, it's only for the richest. I've seen this training course, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna go on training course. And it was at the time the company used to call Tigrand, and since then they've changed many names. But so I went on a course. That's how my property journey has started. And interestingly enough, I got back and on a course that always tell you from now on, tell everyone that you're a property investor.
Hmm.
So I did. And I was taking my son to gymnastics, and there was another mom, which, I got friendly with, and she goes, how was your weekend? I said, well, excellent. I went on a course. I said, which one? I said, this one, property investment. And she was like, oh, that's really strange because I'm going on exactly the same course next week. We always talk kids. We never talk like business or anything like that. So you were allowed to bring a business partner or partner on a course, as you do. Her partner was babysitting. My husband was babysitting. So we came by ourselves. So she goes to me, look, if you tell them I'm your business partner and they're going to refund my money back, I'll give you half what you paid.
Right.
And
Good plan.
that's how our joint venture began. And she became my business partner down the line.
That's amazing. And yeah, wow, what a small world. Just before we start on the property journey, just going back, a little bit to what you were saying about the kid thing, because it's obviously a situation that a huge amount of professional people face. And it's funny that you bring it up because I was doing filming an episode yesterday with another guest who had the same feelings, right? Corporate job, many hours, long commute, great money, lots of money, but the kid was, going to spending all the time in the nursery. They were paying $3,000 a month, to be in this nursery over in the US. And, they had this epiphany. Hold on a minute. What's this all about? I'm killing myself in the job. I'm making loads of money, but I'm missing out on the upbringing of my child. And that was the springboard that sent them in a different direction in life. So, I don't think you're alone there, Julia. And obviously there's a hell of a lot of other people that are kind of, wrestling with this this idea of sacrifice and what do I do? What's the right thing to do? Do I choose to spend the time with my child through the most precious years of their life where they're most vulnerable and they're most malleable and they're going to be taking and consuming all this information because you want to be the one who's going to be giving them that, not some stranger in a nursery school. So what would you suggest people do in that case, in as you was there and you obviously navigated your way through that? What's the way to tackle that challenge?
I think it's really hard to give, specific advice here because some people value their careers so strongly, and I've got few friends who remained full-time in corporate jobs because I guess they're so passionate about what they do, and
Yep.
understanding that if they will take a gap for the childcare, then would it be back at the level they've been, right? And I think that's the biggest challenge that every parent is facing. And unfortunately, at the moment, it will be the woman who will be facing that kind of challenge, I guess, because paternity leave in this country is not developed, right? It's what, 2 weeks or maybe just slightly over 2 weeks. Um, so yes,
It
it's hard to say really, like to give direct advice to someone. But what I wanted to say that if you valuing, and that's really, really important to you, that's really speaks strongly to you to spend a lot of time with your child and installing those values and be part of the basics and development, then there are ways how you can structure your day and how you can find that balance as well. Like my favorite saying, in an impossible situation, there are always three exits. So, what are they? What I can do to find that balance? I'll be asking those type of questions, but obviously it is possible.
it's incredibly difficult. I mean, I don't have children myself. It was just not something that ever really happened for me. And I think because of the slightly unconventional life that I've led, spending, pretty much my whole adult life living in different places around the world and, different relationships with people from other parts of the world, kind of, it just, it never happened. I've got nothing against children, but it just didn't happen for me personally. But I've seen my sister, she's a single parent, has been since, my beautiful niece was born, and she's done an incredible job with it. But I've seen the struggles, and I think the UK is probably one of the toughest places to do this because the childcare costs are out of control. The support is non-existent from the government, and I've seen her be torn between trying to generate an income, go to work, drive my niece here, there, and everywhere, get her to school, picking her up. It's a huge problem, and I would, yeah, give a huge, pat on the back to anyone who's out there managing that because it's a very, very tough situation. So you had this realization that you wanted to spend more time with your kids, or you've one child at that point, right? You
Hmm.
challenge your friend, you find out you're going to this same property event. So what happens after that? Is this where you tell us that you built this multi-million-pound portfolio overnight, or how did it unfold?
I wish, right? So we went to the course, and one of the things that we've learned from the course, and I can guarantee many listeners and viewers will be able to relate this if you ever went on any property course, that you learn that people and case studies that they're showing off, everyone is becoming financially free in 6 months' time, and they start to live the
That
dream and they
long?
quit.
It's 3 months normally. I'm seeing 3 months now on the
Are you even
Facebook
three?
ads.
Well, you see, I need to catch up with the standards. And you're quitting your corporate job and da 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 da. So obviously, we were sold the dream like anyone else. So, and I remember really, really clearly, it's like 3 months in, and I'm thinking, we haven't even made an offer yet on the first house. Like we're a bit like I feel a bit pressure. And then I remember 4 months in, and we haven't made an offer. And then 6 months in, and we haven't even purchased anything. And I remember me and my
Did you
business
have a
partner was,
specific strategy though, Julia? At this, what was you looking to offer on? What was the target?
we, yes, we wanted to enter HMOs market. And again, I'll mention the reason why with HMOs, because again, one of the basic principles that lots of trainers out there teach you, that get your foot in the door with buy to lets, get
Hmm.
comfortable, get your head around it. So I went to my business partner. Look, if our objective is quit our corporate jobs and create cash flow, how many buy to lets do we need to buy? And she was like, 20. I was like, hold on a second, how many? 20? How the hell are we going to buy 20 buy to lets in the next 6 months, right? Well, I'm talking
200,
6 months.
200 today with the economy the way it is. Mm.
So I said, look, um, as me being again coming from environment of being coach, trainer, I'm already my mindset already different, I guess, to your standard person, right? Because I understand how your brain works and how you can challenge yourself and how you can set yourself big goals. So I go to her, hold on a second, let's not get beaten up here. What actually help us to achieve our goal? What are the strategy? And we worked out HMOs will, we only need like 5 HMOs and
Hmm.
job done. So we thought, okay, let's set ourselves objective of HMO, despite what everyone else was saying is heavy regulated, you need to know what you're doing, all that stuff. And fun enough, we start learning HMO strategy ourselves, start meeting local HMO officer, going to see other HMOs, networking with people who've done HMOs. And the irony of this is that by the time we start hitting the module of HMO on our training course, we already knew more than the course content. And we actually haven't even finished that module because, we didn't need it. So
What
hence
what
we
what
chose
area were you looking to invest in HMOs? Was it close to where you was based, or?
that other, this is another really good one. So I live down south of England. So I live just outside of Crawley, outside of Gatwick Airport. So to make the strategy work down here, obviously house
Mm.
prices are much more higher than northern prices. So we've done this ping pong exercise, north, south for I don't know how many months, for a long time. And eventually we still decided to stick with make it work here on a doorstep. So our investment portfolio is in Crawley and we stuck with that. And you know what? I'm glad that we did because in my story, I came accidental landlord, and my buy-to-let property was in Cambridgeshire when I was living down south here, outside of Gatwick. And I remember I was getting the property ready for rentals, and I remember I went up there, to make it all beautiful and presentable, and I ran out of time to put curtains up. So I've ironed them and, like I lay them down on the floor and I was thinking when I get back home, I just make a couple of calls and find handyman to go and put the curtain pole and then curtains up. And I remember I was calling people and they were quoting me £60 for just coming out and literally just doing 2 screws. I was thinking, I'm not paying that, like for 2 screws, £60, but nobody wanted to come out for less than that because obviously it's that time. So really quickly, I've learned that if you want to control your assets, and again, me being young mom, I couldn't go there myself. I couldn't just jump in a car and get things done because it wasn't possible. I've got young child. I have to be local. So, and then there was like other events where I had valuer coming out because we were remortgaging the house and valuer couldn't get in because the key didn't work or something like that. And then because just that event, we missed the deadline for interest rates and the interest rates went up and the value can only come up in 2 weeks' time because they got booked
Mm.
up, with all the changes. So I remember again, I was thinking, if only I lived on a doorstep, I would have managed to get the new copy
Mm.
of the key. The agent just wasn't that bothered. So again, having your investments on a doorstep and be able to control your assets was the key for us.
It, it's a really important part. And again, similar stuff to what we preach, with our serviced accommodation mentees, we want everybody to be within 30 minutes of their properties, because obviously service accommodation is even more involved than HMOs. Yes, we build teams. Yes, we systemize and automate things and use technology to make it as passive as possible. But at the end of the day, when you're the business owner, when shit goes down and it's on a holiday, or your team are, in Dubai, whatever, the cleaners have, they're somewhere else, you need to step up. So it's really important, and something that's worth noting for people at home that are looking to get started. Focus on where you live first. And regardless of where you live, there's always strategies that work wherever you are. It's just a matter of learning what they are. Um, so also, Julia, I just want to dig in a little bit to, I'm always aware that when people are listening, sometimes it's really easy to kind of oversimplify things. So you just jumped from, being in a corporate job that you weren't necessarily happy with, wanting to spend more time at home with the kids or the family. And, all of a sudden we're starting to buy HMOs in Crawley, right? Which is obviously expensive. So where did the money come from? Did you use private finance, raise money? If you did, how did you do it? And what would you say to people at home that are listening, thinking, well, I'd love to do that, Julia, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck here and just about keeping the lights on. So what's the secret?
I love that question, Alex. So, yes, when I decided to quit my corporate career and already thought property is the area I want to build a business in, I went to get, um, um, I call it crappy job, basically. That's what I call it. So I went to get this job as a salesperson for the company I'm not going to mention. And so I was working from home, so nobody was controlling me. I was getting paid salary, which obviously much less than corporate one. However, I had the time freedom and
Mm,
also I had some consistent income that just to cover my basic bills. So I was spending all of my time building the business, networking connections, and you are right, we didn't have our own funds to invest to start with, me and my business partner. So working with investors and private funds was our strategy as well. So there was lots of networking involved at the early days, try to find our first investors, clients, all those kind of things. And I remember um, me and Christina, my business partner, we thought, right, okay, if HMO is our strategy, we now became experts. We know everything about HMOs on paper and knowledge wise. Well, we can actually help here someone who wants to build HMO, doesn't have time, but do have money. And we approach, or we end up talking to one of fellow student from our course who was in a corporate career, just couldn't quit the job yet, wanted to build portfolio. So we were like perfect match to each other. And she had trust already with us because we were part of the same course and we understand the principles. So she became our first client. And so obviously it takes time to source the property and the rest. And I remember distinctively when my boss at the time called me in. It was 4 months into this new job, crappy
crappy
job,
job.
and yes, and I shouldn't really say that. Rano, like all jobs are jobs, right?
Yeah.
But so he calls me in and he's like, Julia, you're in sales role and your sales performance basically is not there, and we put in a performance development plan, and basically we have to let you go. And I started to cry. I was like, oh no, but not because I was so gutted for losing this job, because I was thinking, I just need one extra month, one more month, and then my business is fine and I can just transition. So I was begging my boss at the time, can you please give me extension for 1 month? And he was like, no, sales is brutal, right? If you're not delivering, you're gone. So I remember I was driving back from that meeting and I called my business partner and I remember I was crying on the phone. I said, oh, you can't believe I just got fired. And she was like, don't worry, Julia, we'll get this, through it. And again, using my coaching skills, we sat down and I love using timelines. So we mapped out, where we at, all those kind of events that happening. And we actually worked out that because we already secured our first client, the money is coming next month, and then next month, like, because obviously the client pays in installments, and actually what I'm getting paid from this company, like in lieu and whatever, is enough for me until our next client payment. And moreover, my business partner realized that actually there is enough for her to quit her job. So she was like, I think I better start writing my notice, right? Can I write a notice now? I was like, yes, let's do it. So she quit her job literally on that day as well. So we were celebrating. So that's how we started. Our first client was someone from the property group, and we became experts in what we do. And then we found our first investor, so who I guess gave his trust in us to know what we do, because we already had that first client. We were able to show, look, this is the type of HMOs that we're creating. This is what it's going to look like. This is the figures. This is the returns. So he
Right.
was really happy with that. So that's
You,
how we
you were
started,
you were
really.
proving your levels of expertise and the levels of knowledge that you had in order to gain the trust of that investor. And again, just to reflect some obvious highlights here that have got you to where you are today, that can easily be missed, I think, is, and again, it's the same story, that the ability to take steps back in order to recognize and realize that for the long term you're going to be taking many, many steps forward, right? And not a lot of people would do that. A lot of people who are in a comfortable position with a job that they're not fulfilled by, as long as the money's coming in, they're willing to sacrifice happiness and contentment and freedom and everything else in order to satisfy that safety net. Whereas entrepreneurs and business leaders and people who go out and become their best selves, they say, no, I'm going to give up that safety net. I'm going to pull back the safety blanket. I'm aware that I'm going to have to take many, many steps back. And if you want to take the extreme example, I've read about entrepreneurs who have slept in their car, sold their house, maxed out their credit cards, right? With this absolute unshakable confidence and knowledge and belief that they're going to get to this end goal, right? So it's like, it doesn't matter if I've got to do this crappy job. It doesn't matter if I've got to sleep in the car, remortgage the house, whatever, because I know that in 6 months, 6 years, I'm going to be hitting it big. And that's what you did, right? You took the crappy job, you gave up the well-paid corporate life in order to take a few steps back, knowing that in the long term you're going to gain time, freedom, the ability to be at home with your family, and ultimately making more money than you was in your stable corporate career.
Absolutely. And I really love what you just highlighted, the sheer belief. Like there are two things that we can't see. We cannot see fear, but also we cannot see faith. So out of two, you might as well choose faith. And when I talked about this time when we went on the course and everyone is financially free in 6 months' time, and we're like, oh, so deflated, thinking, how come we not yet? We might as well just pack up now. We're not successful. We start comparing us against them, and there is
Mm-hmm.
something wrong with us. All that negative self dialogue kicks in. And I remember I said to my business partner, I said, look, let's just remove this deadline of 6 months. I don't know why did we get this, why we so installed this in our minds. Let's just know that whatever we do is going to take us to our end goal. We're going to have this business. We're going to have our first property. Because we committed. That's what we really, really want, right? Because that's the whole idea why we quitted our corporate jobs. We want to spend time with children. We want to be more flexible. We want to have this lifestyle. So let's just have that in focus rather than the 6 months timeline. And the interesting thing with that, Alex, that the moment we've done that, the moment we just remove this pressure and this deadline from our heads and just put faith into focus, we literally, within 3 months after, we secured our first client, we found the investor, and we kick off the business and the whole process. And, we obviously never look back. But it
I,
started with that faith.
I think it's a real problem, Julie, what you're just touching on here. You know, it's all you see splattered across the internet now. And I put a post up the other day about, literally a combination of social media and property courses. It's like the Wild West, right? Because it's not regulated. and sex sells. And if a property trainer or a property academy or school can go out there and have a shop window to the world and preach, you come on my course, financial freedom, in 3 months. I saw this from a very established and renowned property trainer who I personally would if he wanted to pay me to go on his course, I still wouldn't go. But hundreds of thousands of people for some reason do. Not going to mention any names. And this person said in big letters on his paid ad, 3 months financial freedom through serviced accommodation, rent to rent. And the other issue with this is everybody goes in with this belief. Nobody actually achieves it other than an absolute minute percentage of people who obviously have a natural ability to broker deals, to build relationships, to maybe they're already in a position where they've got access to finance, whatever the reasons are. Some people do it, but they're incredibly rare. 99.9% of people don't. They take years, right, before they get to a point where they're able to leave their job. But the problem is that because of social media and because of everybody's ego and the way that we're all programmed, nobody ever wants to admit that fact, right? So you end up with a combination of trainers saying 3 months to financial freedom, and then everybody on social media saying, I've got to financial freedom in 3 months, even though they haven't. Because if everybody's doing it and everybody's comparing themselves to each other, nobody wants to be the one to put their hand up and say, I fucked up and I'm not making any money and I'm 12 months in and we haven't made an offer, or we haven't had an offer accepted, or I've got no frigging idea what I'm doing. But I do feel like the tide has changed a little bit. And I do feel like people are now cottoning on and getting a little bit tired of having all of this bullshit kind of rammed down their throat on social media, and the private jets and the Lamborghinis that have been leased for the day shoots and all that stuff. And I think people now are resonating more. And I say to our mentees, when you have a failure and when something goes drastically wrong and you lose money, or if you've taken on a property that was completely upside down and inside out from a saucer that was 2 days out of a training course and you got turned over, it's actually wrong for you to not share that information with other people, because you know that you're not going to make that mistake again because of your own knowledge and your own ability now and the fact that you're working with us. But you need to let other people know what happened to you so they can avoid doing the same thing. And I think that people hear and see and listen to, and then that urges them to go, yeah, me too. And I think that movement's slowly starting to trickle down.
Absolutely. And I always say there is, to all my coaching clients, there is a season to sow and there is a season to reap, but you can't do both at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole new episode about it, but I would just, exactly what you said, Julia, just, you don't have to compare yourself to what other people are doing. Don't believe what other people are saying that they're doing. Go out and see the results for yourselves and then surround yourself by those people, but don't buy into just what people are writing in posts or putting up in videos, because a lot of it's not true. And as long as every single day you're getting up and doing your best, and in yourself and in your heart and your head, you can say, yeah, I put in a full day. I didn't turn on the Netflix. I didn't spend an hour scrolling on TikTok. My whole day was consumed with growing and moving forward this business. I'm happy, I'm healthy, and tomorrow I'm going to get up and do the same thing. And as long as whether it takes you 3 months or 3 years or 30 years, you can go to sleep at night feeling good.
Absolutely. Can't agree more.
So, okay, so the HMO portfolio, I'm aware of the time here, that on these podcasts, everything goes so quick because it's really good content. But so you start to build the HMO portfolio, you're out of your job now, you found financial freedom through the property business. So where are we today? Fast forward, what's your current circumstances? I know that you've moved slightly more into a kind of coaching role.
Yeah, so as we were building our HMO portfolio and building HMO portfolio for others, it's came to think, who is going to manage those properties? Who is going to find tenants? And because we approach property as a business, so we've done proper marketing research, we had product, I call it product. I couldn't just let any high street letting agent to basically ruin it, right? So because it's very specialized, HMO management is very specialized. So we opened our own agency. I never
Okay.
aspired to be estate agent, letting agent in my life, but ended up being one. So we opened up letting agency. So I had to learn how to be letting agent, all the regulations at the same time as building the business. An interesting story with this. As I was doing that, I fell pregnant with my second child,
Okay.
and my business was at the peak. And like when you look at the pregnancy stick, it was like good news, but also bad news at the same
Mm.
time. In my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, how I'm going to do this? Um, but again, in any impossible situation, there are always three exits. So being scarce for time and being new mom, it's made me think outside of the box. So efficiency, automation, all that was the key for me. Think outside of the box, think not traditional, think different. So that's what I've done. I've from day one in letting agency. By that time, we split the role. So my business partner was in charge of developments, and I was in charge of letting business. So like from day one, I knew that business has to be exit ready, and at some point we're gonna sell it because it's not the type of business that it was a passion. Like we
Mm.
created it, we loved it.
It was a
Um,
need rather than a
it
passion
was a
project.
need,
Yeah.
yes. But from day one, I was building that business to be exit ready. So even though it was me in it, I was outlining our mission statement, our values, our processes. I was writing job description for people. So when I
Mm.
started recruiting people, it became very easy to do that. So fast forward, that business was up and running and done really well, and it came time for us to sell it. Me and my business partner agreed, like I think it's time. So because it already was packaged up and ready, we put it out there for sale. We had two offers from various people, and it was really interesting process, like because what it's made me think as a business owner, like probably every business owner, if you never went through sale of your business or experienced that, you always think you've got Taj Mahal to sell because it's like your blood, sweat, and
Hmm.
tears. It's your
Yeah.
baby. But
I want
it's
100
became
million, not a penny less.
absolutely, and this thing of three times multiplier
Mm.
is the thing that's going on for everyone. But I've learned really quickly that wasn't the case. That big number in my head that we outlined in my business partner just wasn't on the cards at all. And the offers we were getting, like, really? You must be joking. Anyway, so I've learned really quickly how to sell your business, where is the value is, and cut the long story short. I've sold my share to my business partner, so she held the whole business now. So she's operating with that business. We launch since to new developments, so we work directly with private funds, private investors, and do new builds where we buy a plot of land with planning, or we can take it through planning, build number of units, usually up to 10, 15 units, and then sell it. And that model works really well as well for us. And by having now more free time back to my diary after exiting letting agent, I thought, what is my passion, right? What I love to do. Like wake me up 2 o'clock in the morning. I can talk, not preparation. I love it. And it's my favorite subject. And I thought coaching, business, property. And I thought, okay, well, let's do that. So hence I've launched into business coaching, and this is what I do day to day. That's my passion, and I'm helping small, medium-sized business owners to get themselves into, I call it, exit-ready position in their business. Not necessarily that you want to exit, but you want to be
Right.
ready for sure.
Preparing for it. Yeah, because that's something that could easily be missed, right? You're in business, you're busy, you're building, you're growing, you're making money, but you're not thinking about what happens when the day comes to exit. And there's a whole process that you could have been doing over the last 5 years of documenting the steps, writing the processes, logging all that stuff. 100%. I get that. So, did you retain the HMO portfolio, or have you still got that, or is
Yeah,
that gone?
still, I still retain portfolio, and that is taken care of. letting business was more involvement day to day, even though it was
Yeah.
automated, like exactly what you said, despite having team, the buck always stops with the owner. And you can imagine with tenants in HMO, there is always something happens, drastic drama. So, and new builds, it's very systemized, doesn't require of my time. So we're still involved in that and work with local developers as well as looking for projects as well ourselves.
It's truly quite staggering, and a lot of the a lot of the times I get, my guests come on here and they tell their story, and I at the end I sit here and go, wow, that's amazing because of A, B, C, and D, E, F, G, and at the end of it they're like, huh, I haven't really thought about that, and I guess it is pretty cool. And for you to sit there and say you came over from this communist country with big dreams and big desires without even speaking English, you know just a bit of an education behind you, break into the corporate ranks, work your way up, you know, then realizing that it's not serving you and you need more, you start having your family, and then you just naturally kind of, blend into the property world through more hard work, more study, more determination, taking the risks, getting uncomfortable, doing the networking, meeting the investors, raising the finance, building the portfolio, then building the lettings company off the back of that. And then with all of that knowledge and all of that success, still saying, I want more and I know I can do more now with all of this extra knowledge. Now I'm going to go and start building developments. I mean, it's like, if that isn't the ultimate, not rags to riches story. I know it wasn't that you came from, complete poverty or anything like that, but the levels of determination that it takes to do that surely has to make everybody who's sitting at home thinking, I know I'm capable of more. This just shows that anything's really possible. Yes, you're going to have to work your ass off. Yes, you're going to have to be willing to make sacrifices and take steps backwards when you need to in order to get to your ultimate vision. But if you're willing to put in the work and not fall into this trap of comparing yourself and getting down about your progress and where you are, just keep moving forward every day just a little bit more, you'll get to these dizzy heights, which is where you are today. I think it's absolutely amazing.
Mm. And the interesting thing is, Alex, with all this that you describe, it's not the destination yet. Like the once you reach certain platform, the horizon opens up, and you think, wow, there is a lot of more things that
Yeah.
I want to achieve and aspire, and yeah, the dream is still big.
It's really, really, really amazing, Julian, to do it all alongside a family, all of that, and now helping people to exit their own businesses and companies. It's really, really inspiring. And I'm aware that you've got a coaching call coming up, so we'll start wrapping up here. One last, well, I'll tell you what. Let me ask you first. What do you want to let our audience know? You're currently coaching. Have you got positions open at the minute for people who want to reach out, who are looking to maybe think about exiting or building their business?
Yes, if you do have business right now and you want to scale, grow, and expand, but it's already like too much, and you think how I can do more, that's already like a lot I'm doing. And maybe at some point you considered, like what if I sell it, or what if I want to exit, then definitely book a discovery call with me. It's free, it's half an hour chat, getting to know each other, understanding your business, and see how I can help you. That's where it all starts. And then usually my coaching clients sign up with me for the program, which I have outlined. It's my own unique signature program, 7 steps growth plan, which I take them through step by step. And that's what I bring to them. I bring them clarity, how to exit, how to create business that can operate without you, um, which will take time, obviously, to complete. But, there are ways. I always say there are always 3 exits, right? So I'll give
Three
you one of
exits.
them, that's for sure.
Amazing, amazing. I would implore anyone to reach out to Julia if you're looking for help with your business. Well, obviously based on everything that you've told us about your life and experiences. One last question, Julia, before we wrap up here, that I like to ask all of my guests. It's related to mental health. I'm a big advocate for mental health, having been through my own challenges as most people have. And I think that, again, coming back to the social media aspect and everybody, pretending they're lighting the world on fire, and, this comparison syndrome that goes on today, can bring a lot of mental health issues, and make people kind of beat themselves up. And it's easy to pedestalize my guests on this show, because, everybody's seemingly done very well, but at the same time also had their challenges along the way, like we all do. So the simple question is where you are right now today, Julia, is are you happy, in yourself, in your head, in your heart? Are you feeling good day to day?
I am happy, definitely, because what I am doing, I'm focusing on each day as it comes. Like you mentioned about struggles and challenges. Obviously, there is lots of other things that I haven't shared with you that I faced throughout all this time as well. But one thing I do, and I always advocate, if it's not in your diary, it doesn't get done. So I consistently schedule me time and relaxation time or mindset time into my diary. And what does it look like? It looks like in a way of yoga. Each Friday, 9:30, I do yoga and I go to a class, and I've got an amazing teacher who combines body movement with mindset. Like she talks through, and the language that she's using is amazing, very like nourishing for your mind as well. So when I'm leaving that class, I feel like I'm being in therapy. And it's that in my diary, no matter what, every single Friday. If you want to have an appointment with me on Friday, 9:30, sorry, you can't have it. It's my
That's your
time,
non-negotiable, which is important.
non-negotiable.
That little slot of me time where nothing's going to get in the way. Yeah, I love that. Great advice. Great advice. Well, Julia, look, it's been an incredible episode. So much there. We could have definitely spoke for longer. I know you've got to rush off and jump on a coaching call here. So we're going to put all your information in the studio notes. If anybody's interested in connecting with Julia, please do. All of her information will be below the podcast in the studio notes. And all that's left to say is you're an inspiration to women, to business leaders, to property investors, to show what's possible. And I guess thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us and everybody at home. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex, so much for having me on your show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you so much for all your listeners and viewers as well. And I'm very approachable. If you want to have a chat, just reach out. I'll be more than happy to do so. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much for everybody who listened and watched at home. And we'll see you again next week on another episode of the Airbnb Nomads podcast. Until then, take care.